So right now I'm 30 years old. This story starts all the way back in like 2009 when I was in about 10th grade. I started having all these strange dreams like every night for about 3 weeks. And I would wake up every single morning at about 3:30, 3:33. This was well before I knew anything about the supernatural. I wasn't conspiratorial. I grew up in a very religious household, but like there was never a big conversation about like demonic entities or anything of the sorts. Anyway, I started doing some research about these dreams I was having. I confided in my mother, who ultimately ended up confiding in a priest, which I found this out much later. He came and blessed our house. I like really unnerved my mom with the things that I was sharing with her.
Hmm.
Um, Eventually, it got to the point in my research that I learned about. Um, what is it, lucid dreaming, and then later on astral projection. So this conversation you're having about these remote viewers really like kind of sparked this in my memory. um so I started having these dreams and learned about lucid dreaming and discovered that this might be a pathway to kind of figure out what's going on in my subconscious. And it evolved to the point to where I was able to just throw myself into a void, almost like a sleep deprivation tank. Now that these are more common, I can actually associate it with something.
Hmm.
Um, and I would kind of create these worlds around myself. And eventually, the movie Inception came out about a year later after all this happened. And when I saw that movie, I realized, okay, what I'm experiencing isn't an isolated incident. Obviously, I've read about lucid dreaming already, but what I was actually visualizing in my sleep, in my dream world, I actually saw come to fruition in the real world. And that's just something that cannot be conveyed in words. You have to visually see it to kind of understand. This goes on, this almost absolute control that I have over this dreamscape of mine, goes on for about another year. And as I'm doing it, this entity essentially starts observing me from the background. It's always there. And mind you, I have complete control over these worlds. If I wanted to be somewhere else, I could be somewhere else. I could change the landscape, the people around me, everything in my environment. But eventually, this entity would always be present. I could not escape it, like at all. And
Hmm.
it weighed on me so heavily. I mean, it made me uncomfortable. I've never felt uncomfortable in a dream, like even in a nightmare. And it's hard to relive this. If you can't tell, I'm getting a little shakiness in my voice, and I'm sure you can see my cam. I'm probably getting a little flush.
I,
Um,
I can see it, but we're not broadcasting it. Don't worry,
yeah,
nobody else can.
and take your time.
Yeah, take your time, brother.
um, this continued, and I kept waking up at 3:33. I ended up researching the significance of um that angel number or whatever they want to call it, and the demonic ties in between
Mm.
this time frame, this witching hour, as I learned that it was called.
Yep.
um I got to a point where I had a conversation with this thing, and I just asked it questions like, what are you? What do you want from me? Like, why can't I get away from you? And it never answered. It kept giving me this just open-ended questions. It wanted me to follow it, all this stuff. And eventually one night, it just kind of drew a line. It said, either come with me or stop fooling around with with what you're doing. And um, this void that I was in, it's just pure blackness. It opened up um almost like a stairwell, like descending, and I just felt this heat. I just felt like this darkness and this just oppressive force just on my chest. And I woke up. Like I have never woken up so violently in my life where I shot up off of my pillow.
Hmm.
Um, I basically, before I woke up, I said, screw you. Like, I had at this point moved away from Christianity, and I didn't believe in any of this at all.
Right.
I couldn't bring myself to it. Growing up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and just like all these religious zealots around me, it steered me away from it.
Mhm.
But after that night, I remember walking to my front, my living room, and we have this humongous sliding glass door, this huge fireplace mantle that you pass as you're walking towards it. And as I'm walking towards this door to let my dog out, I see this figure in the reflection sitting to my left. And I turn to look at it because in my mind, there's actually something there. It looked so real. It stood out so clearly to me. And then the next thing that happened, this old barn window frame that we had mounted on our fireplace mantle falls down on me. And I put my arms up, and those thin glass panes, my arms just go through it. I have cuts on my arm
Wow.
because of it. And
Wow.
I had to leave and get stitches.
Wow.
My mom was there. She takes me to the ER, and we come back, and just like the last person mentioned, or the person before him, every single TV on, or every single TV in our house was on the same channel, which should be impossible. We all had different cable boxes. We all watched different shows, and it was just loud, loud static.
Wow.
But yeah, I know I just kind of yapped here, but and
No.
I know no one would possibly believe me. I've told this story to three people. One person that found my dream journal when they were helping my mom move and called me
Oh
and
boy.
asked me if I was okay.
Oh boy.
An ex-girlfriend, and then a roommate I had. But if anyone doubts that there is something greater going on here, I don't know what it is. I
Mm.
don't know if it's God. I don't know if it's demons, what have you, but there's something significant happening behind the scenes. I didn't believe it. I get shook up just reliving this experience. But yeah, remote viewing is real. Y'all don't doubt that for a second. I definitely dipped my toe into the astral plane, and I got checked. I
Yeah.
got checked by an entity much more powerful than myself. Um,
I know someone, an older guy. He's probably in his early 60s. Successful guy, father, great father. And he told me a story when he was in college. So it was 40 years ago, of him getting into the astral world. And he told me a very similar story to yours. He didn't have the attack in the real world, but he did tell me that he started to love it there and he didn't want to leave. Like he really liked being
yep.
there. And he befriended an entity. He didn't say entity, but there was like a figure. And he thought it was like a friend. And I don't know how long he would be going there, but this happened for a long amount of time. And one time in the astral world, he was looking at that figure that he had befriended there, and then something came up behind him and whispered in his ear. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember exactly how he said it. I remember it as him being told that you're talking to the devil. He might not have used the word devil. It might have been something else, like something evil. But something came up
Yeah.
behind him and warned him, like the thing you think is your friend is bad. And he left and never went back. Did you
Yeah.
feel that way, like when you were going to the astral place, like that you were kind of like happier
Yes.
there than in the real world?
I would say yes. And I mentioned I've only told this to a few people, one being a girlfriend. And I ended up telling her because we actually went to see a movie called Insidious.
Oh yeah, I've heard about
And
that. I haven't seen it.
well, there's this boy. The premise is a boy starts to astral project, and then eventually his father learns how to save him. Um, well, when they finally enter that scene where they finally show where this boy's been going to, I actually became physically ill and stood up and walked out of the theater.
Whoa.
I'm not someone that gets easily scared, but in
Hmm.
that moment, that was so real for me.
Right.
The void, the darkness, the woman that was ghostly white, almost as if she was covered in ash. There's a few things I've left out of my story. It's just hard to talk about. Um, but yeah, I mean, to answer your question, yes, absolutely. I mean, it just at this point in my life, I feel like I was being led by a demon to kind of descend into a closer relationship with a devil or the devil. It felt so hot in that moment when that floor opened up to reveal to me what I wanted to know. Like, what are you? Um,
Was it
I just
was it
Go
trying
ahead.
to entice you in anything? Like, was it saying like was it promising anything? Like if you took the staircase?
It did not. The only thing it promised me was that every question I had would be answered. Um, and immediately when I woke up, I reflected back on what I had learned in Bible study about the tree of knowledge,
Yeah.
and I just said, I just told myself, "Wow, you dodged a bullet there."
Yep.
That is biblical, nearly prophetic. I mean, and I converted my life to Christ and committed my life to Christ in that moment,
Oh, incredible.
because I knew everything. I had doubted there was some truth to it, at least. Not that it was 100% right, but that there was definitely some truth to it.
Yeah, there's certainly evil in this world, and it wants you, for sure.
Yep.
Would you mind saying the things that you saw that came true?
Um, so probably the most prevalent prophetic dream that I had, uh, I was sitting at my desk. This was the dream took place senior year of high school. And I was sitting at my desk with my four friends. We had our four desks facing each other. It was after lunch, and it was a weird vibe because our teacher wasn't in the room, which was odd. She's always in there. And in my dream, she comes back in shortly after we sat down and the bell is rung. She's very somber. Um, there's a lot of sorrow on her face, and she turns to us and she says, "Guys, I'm in the next few weeks, I will not be here anymore. I'm not going to finish the school year with y'all. I have cancer."
Hmm.
And I swear on my soul, about 2 weeks later, we are sitting in class. I'm sitting down in front of my friends. I turn to my buddy Chris and Travis, and they're having a conversation. I can't even recall what it is now, but I've said, "We've had this conversation before." Travis goes, "No, we haven't. I just revealed a dark secret to y'all." And I said, "Yeah, and you developed that dark secret because of this." And he goes, "How did you know that?" And I said, "We've I've lived this." And in the next moment, my teacher walked in and told us she had cancer. And that's kind of when I really started diving into the lucid dreaming.
Hmm.
That was very early on to it, but that was the most prophetic aspect of it.
Did that feel
And
more like
to
a premonition
Go
to
ahead.
you than, sorry, did that feel more like a premonition to you than, like a deja vu? Or was it kind of inverse?
Well, I remember waking up from that dream and thinking, why would I have that dream? I've not thought about cancer. I don't have any family members with cancer. No show I've watched has any cancer themes in it. I think about that stuff when I have dreams. And I just kind of went on about my day. It didn't it was weird because it stuck out and stuck in my head, but I only thought it stuck in my head because it was just so random. It didn't make sense. It wasn't part of my subconscious. It wasn't, related to some movie or video game I played.
Hmm.
And I, in that moment that everything started to play out in real life, have you ever had have you ever been sedated? You know that moment right before you go under where everything's just kind of warm and like a haze,
Yep.
and it feels fake. That's exactly what it felt like it was planned and written and acted out.
Yeah, that's
But
wild.
like I've had deja vu, but it just felt so different from that, so
Yeah.
just like far removed.
Yeah.
Have you do you do the lucid dreaming at all anymore?
I don't.
Like you
I
have.
stopped. I I, if I find myself, you can't ever stop. I dream, I realize I'm dreaming, I wake myself up. It is what you said, your old buddy. It's addictive. I've done plenty of drugs in my life. I'm not happy to admit that. I was a kid in college. What can I say?
Yeah.
Um, but lucid dreaming, having that absolute control over everything around you, I understand why they say power corrupts all, because that was the most addictive part about it. It wasn't sexual, it wasn't perverted, it was just it was control, peace, being able to create things that would could never exist in this world.
Right.
And the older I've gotten, I can see why the devil would want to take advantage of people dipping their toes in that realm, because it is addictive. And if he had promised me more power, I honestly can't even tell you what I would have done. It was so subversive, it was so sneaky, but I just knew something wasn't right. I have complete control over everything except you, and you're trying to offer me something. You're trying to take me somewhere. I learned stranger danger very, very young.
Yeah.
You can't jiggle candy in front of me and get me in your van,
Yeah.
Mr.
Nice.
Devil, but
Nice.
that's what it felt
I love
like.
that you were raised right and you even used it in the astral world to say no. That's amazing. Well, I'm glad that you won in the end, and
Oh,
appreciate you
yeah.
calling in and
And thank
sharing
you
the
for
story.
letting me come here and share this story. I
Yeah,
didn't expect to speak this long, but
no, it was
and
great.
I don't expect anyone to believe me, but guys, I promise you, if you just keep your mind open, you'll see it. It'll happen to you
Yep,
eventually, but just be careful because it's real.
yep, absolutely, man. Well, I really appreciate you calling in.
Yeah,
Have a good
thanks for
night.
sharing, man.